Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Spoiler Warning Podcast. This is review number 787 with a review of Companion. I'm Christopher Schnese.
And I'm Stephen Miller.
And if you're joining us for the first time, the Spoiler Warning Podcast is a weekly film review program. Each week on the show, we're going to dive in, debate, discuss, and argue over the latest films coming to a theater near you. This week, we're coming back after a little break from our Sundance coverage, and we're talking about a film that came out last week, but we're talking about Companion. And before we get into this, Stephen, we have to make a really, really big decision.
Right.
Is our review going to assume that people know what the title of this film means, or are we going to be cagey for all of 5 minutes before we get into spoilers?
Yeah, I think we need to be Lukas Gage for a few minutes. So here's my story, is I'm sure I vaguely heard somewhere what the plot of this movie was. I don't believe I had seen a trailer for it, but I'm sure I caught something. I wasn't certain, though, what this movie was about, which means when I watched it, I had an inkling of what the title meant, but I could have been completely wrong and been unsurprised. And so I got the joy of experiencing the plot the way I think the creator wanted it to be experienced. And I kind of want to preserve that for people. At the same time, I think it is damn near impossible to talk about without spoiling. So I think we should just do a sort of blanket spoiler warning up front, which is that the basic premise of this movie, the stuff that will be revealed in the first 20 minutes or so of the movie, is fair game, and we are going to talk about it. So if you really want to see it and be unsullied by anything, pause this podcast, go watch it, and then tune in again once you've already seen it.
Yeah, so my experience with this film, Stephen, was I've seen the teaser a million times, and the teaser was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, I'm like, whatever's happening, I'm curious, right? You have the vague notions of stuff that's weird. Like, basically, the teaser is people sitting down for a dinner. One person is in handcuffs, and then one person is seemingly forced to hold their hand over a candle. And that is all you get. And it's kind of, and then there's a bunch of flashes of like, scary times and running and blah, 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 blah. But like, you don't know why any of that is happening. And you're like, okay. Yeah, I'm intrigued. Then they released the full trailer that they just put in theaters. And it just like, oh, this is what this movie is. So get ready for this movie. And I was like, I feel like I might have liked this better if I didn't. Not talking about the movie. I mean, like seeing the trailer, I was like, I feel like I might have been more excited to go into that film unsullied.
Right.
But I don't know how much it did or didn't affect my viewing of the film.
Right.
It just kind of it weirded me out that they didn't feel confident in the mystery of the first teaser and immediately jumped to like, let's just tell people what it is, because maybe that'll get them to want to see it. Like maybe things weren't tracking right, and they just were expecting a bad showing. So they're like, oh, if we could just tell people, then they'll want to see it. I have no idea, but it definitely bummed me out.
This is making me want to pivot because I enjoyed my unsullied experience, and it sounds like you are at least unsullied curious. Like you wonder if it would have been better to go in not knowing. And that makes me think we should try to do just a very simple review and then most of the episode in spoiler territory. Anyone who I gave a warning already paused, though, so I guess it's too late.
Well, I couldn't tell, honestly, if you were giving the warning or explaining the warning that you were going to give.
Right. Okay, yeah. It's fair game.
So I think you didn't say go.
I think we can do like a 5-minute review of just how we felt about the movie and what makes it interesting, and then go into spoilers, which is where most of the movie actually lives.
Yeah. I think that is safe.
Okay.
All right. Then we're going to play the teaser for Companion. Then we're going to come back and give you that 5-minute review that Stephen was mentioning.
My love must be a kind of blind love, or bright. I only have eyes for you.
5 minutes. 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 5 minutes
sound cheesy, but the moment we locked eyes, there was just a spark.
All right, so that was the teaser trailer for Companion. It is about a bunch of people going to hang out at a house. Stephen Miller, what did you think about Companion?
I thought this movie kicked ass. I had so much fun with Companion, especially not knowing what I was going to witness. And as is often the case with horror, being afraid that I would see something that would make me scared and uncomfortable and hurt my ability to sleep, and instead being very pleasantly surprised with a thrill ride that was just totally enjoyable and really not trying to creep you out, which is my personal preference because I'm a scaredy cat. So the moment I realized the tone of this movie was going to be one of satire and horror comedy rather than let's be creepy crawly, I was so in the tank for this movie. They heavily advertised that this was produced by the people behind Barbarian, and I can definitely see the director has even talked about how he sent an early version of the script to the director of Barbarian, hoping that he might direct the movie, and he was inspired by it. And I can see so much interplay between these movies, which I'll dance around, except to say it fits as like a commentary on the uncomfortable dynamics of dating and toxic masculinity, and it's doing something that is very fun in a way that feels as clever as Barbarian was, with the imagine having to spend time alone in an Airbnb with some guy and the eeriness of it. It feels like it lives in a similar universe, and I had a lot of fun with what this movie is doing. Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid are both so great in this movie. Sophie is really just like hitting home runs. I mean, between this and Heretic, it's just been amazing. From someone I did not know at all to suddenly back-to-back bangers is pretty great. And Jack Quaid, I feel like he has channeled his father in being able to play like total douchebags in an amazing way. I had so much fun. I'll say more in spoilers, but this movie is just a blast, and it is a little predictable, but in a way where it gives you enough to be one step ahead of the characters, but not 10 steps ahead. And that is, to me, the sweet spot of just getting total enjoyment out of a movie like this.
Yeah, I had an amazing time with this film as well. As I said, I was a little bit worried that like I knew too much going into it. And I think that I still watched it knowing that it was written in a way where reveals would slowly play out. And it's like I knew the things that would be revealed, but the way it alludes to it beforehand, the moments, like I can still see the magic of what it's trying to do. It reminds me a little bit of, and I'm gonna relate it to a film that can't give any spoilers away, but it reminds me a little bit of the way certain dialogue choices were made at the beginning of the menu that later on have more significances in the word choices characters have, or the way they talk about certain things. This film
very similar. Yeah, very, very similar setup.
Yeah, this film has a lot of like things like that I'm kind of like, okay, man, I think I would dig this even more if I didn't know, but even knowing, I still see it, and it still feels like a perfect execution of that. It does feel like, when am I going to get the moment? But it's like a thing that I see the craft that went into kind of carving out the way this story would play out and the way things would slowly be revealed to an audience, whether or not they knew what was going on. Right? Like it feels like it's written for that first showing at like a festival type feeling where like literally nobody knows anything, and then for everybody else it's like, just come see it, it's cool. And I do actually like that, some films I'll say in this genre, right, there's like a setup and then it largely ignores the setup and just becomes this like suspense thingy that happens, right? But this film really actually cares about the world that it's building. The idea of what is going on and kind of extrapolates out to a world in which this is just omnipresent everywhere. And I think that I was constantly enjoying myself getting tied into more and more of the world that we're living in. And yeah, I just think it's a really, really fun film that is executed well, and just kind of, I was just like, yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Is that our 5-minute spiel? Do we want to get into spoilers?
I think so. I mean, I have more thoughts, but at this point, I think we should just do it in spoiler territory, since I think that's where the meat is really going to be.
Okay, so as always, before we get to spoiler territory, we do have to give a rating to this film. So, Stephen, let's give verdicts. If you were going to say must see, recommend with the caveat, wait for rental, pass with the caveat, or a must avoid, what would you give it?
I'm just going full must see. I don't think this is a perfect movie. I think if it were 10 minutes longer, I would be getting annoyed with it. You know, it squeezes all the juice it can out of the premise, and maybe like a tiny bit more juice than it has. But it is so much fun to watch, and the cast is just so great. And I think it's an inventive premise on its own right, and then also as a satire of modern dating and some of the, you know, the stories we tell in relationships and what we expect of our partner. I just think this movie has a little bit of everything, and it is so much fun to watch with a crowd of people, especially a crowd of people who are, I'm going to say, slightly less savvy into understanding foreshadowing, and were just shocked at every reveal, and they were having a great time, and I was enjoying listening to them have a great time and feeling a little bit smarter than them every step of the way.
When you saw it, were you sitting in the tiny theater like I was at Alamo, or
Yes.
did you get to... Okay, so yeah. That is the one
It was
bummer.
tiny.
I would love to have seen that with a bigger crowd who's sort of like super vibing with it.
Yeah, tiny but loud. There were a lot of gasps in the theater.
Yeah. But yeah, for me, it's a must-see as well. Had an amazing time with it. I do kind of wish we could have chatted about it sooner to when we saw it, as opposed to like a week later, so we're finally getting to sit down. But had an amazing time, and excited to talk about spoilers, because it's very, very hard to talk about this film. Some people listening are probably like, dude, it's not that big of a spoiler, just talk about it. But we want to at least, you know, stay true to our name.
Yep.
Give you a warning before we just dive in and talk about it. So yeah, we are about to do that in just a moment. But in the meantime, for anybody who for some reason hasn't seen this yet and doesn't want to have spoilers, Stephen Miller, where can people find you throughout the week if they want to do that?
People can find me at Threads or Blue Sky at sdavidmiller or sdavidmiller.com.
People can find me at ChristopherInRealLife.com or ChristopherIRL on a number of social platforms. You can find the podcast over at thespoilerwarning.com, where you get a bunch of the back episodes of the show. If you want to subscribe to the show, you can do so on Overcast, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever podcasts are found. If you want to know when the episodes go live, you can follow us at twitter.com/spoilerwarning, facebook.com/thespoilerwarning, or instagram.com/thespoilerwarning. If you want to get a hold of us directly, you can send an email to fans@thespoilerwarning.com, or you can use the contact form on our site. Music for this episode will come from a track selected from artlist.io, so hopefully you're enjoying that. That music is playing now. It is going to fade up. We're going to go to sleep, and then when the music fades out, we're going to wake up and talk spoilers with you. So see you in just a moment.
Yeah, we playing dumb in Delusional Island, where we don't care about nothing that's ever gonna bother me. Yeah, we playing dumb in Delusional Island.
All right, we are back. This is Spoiler Territory. It's the after part of our review of, I almost called it Champion, Companion. All right, Stephen, should we start from the beginning and sort of where did you first key into the something is wrong here situation, as somebody who didn't see any of the trailers?
Yeah.
Really?
So it depends how you define something is wrong. If it was cluing into something is wrong in the relationship between Sophie Thatcher and Jack Quaid, right
immediately.
away, obviously, because he's already saying patronizing things. Like he's saying like, "Oh, you should have told me earlier if you were worried about this. Why would you wait until now?" He was saying things that felt controlling and felt a little bit gaslighty in the moment, and that kind of made my head turn, because it was kind of early to be revealing that sort of thing.
Like you wanted him to be a nice guy who turned into a dick, not immediately a
exactly.
dick right off the bat.
the way he's being a dick while she is still being Google eyes at him and he is googly eyed at her too, that was the strange dynamic that kind of clued you in very early that there's something odd about this relationship, right? There's something like transactional in an unusual way.
Yeah.
And then my eyebrow raised even more when Kat opens the door and the way she addresses Sophie almost as if she weren't there. But the moment I was certain of it is when they're drinking later and Sophie wants to talk to Kat about why don't you like me, and Kat says it's not that I don't like you, it's what you represent. You know,
Yeah.
It makes me feel so replaceable. And then it was like obvious, right? That was the nail in the coffin that cemented it. Now, I do want to say, and that's part of the reason I wanted to just talk about this all in spoiler territory, that was the nail in the coffin that made me know who both of the robots were in the friend group. And I think the second reveal that Lukas Gage is a robot doesn't happen until maybe like 25 or 30 minutes later or something, and that is played as a big moment. And to me, it was like a delight to just wait for it to happen, because it just seemed so clear that, oh, he's the perfect male partner, right? Like, this is the symmetry to it. I just thought was excellent.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah, he does have the most artificial presence
Right.
out of all the cast members.
But he often does too.
Yeah. He seems a little bit otherworldly. All that, like, whenever you see him, it's something about his smile.
Yeah.
Just feels like a creepy robot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think for me, you know, obviously the second trailer definitely literally just tells you this is the story. Like, it literally has people like turn her off already and stuff like that, you know. So it's not trying to hide it. It kind of goes straight in. So sitting in, I just understood exactly what I was going to get, but I still was kind of tickled by like the fact that he calls her beep boop, and like there's the scene early on where he like rolls over in bed, is like, just go to sleep, and like it kind of cuts to the next scene and you don't really think about it, but like you like, because I know this is his companion robot thing, it's like immediately it's issued as a command, like a literal command, not just like a I'm mad at you, shut up, leave me alone. So there's like a lot of little things like that, and as you said, like the way people talk through her, and as though she's like literally not a person. And the way that sort of plays out kind of became like a really, really fun little thing that was going on. I don't know if I needed, I mean, sorry, in the moment, everything worked perfectly for me. But like the more I think about it outside, I don't know why companions would need to be programmed to think they are 100% real. Because it's not like your friends get you a companion, throw a party, and while you're there, you have a literal meet cute with somebody, and then you're like, oh man, this chick's cool. You know what I mean? It's not like a thing where you are like, you know, the whole time that it's always has artifice. So the fact that they need to not know that they're a companion robot, I don't know if that's the best key for. Yeah.
I mean, I love it as a premise because of what this movie is able to do with that premise.
Yeah.
But I also, you could argue that it's about the illusion, right? And the illusion is easier to keep up if at least one party believes it, because it could be that a lot of these people, they know that their companion is a robot, but because 99% of their life is spent in conversation as if they weren't, they're able to slip into that role more easily, and they don't want the companion to break the illusion. And of course the companion could know, but then know that their directive is to pretend they don't know, you know? So what they really think deep down, I guess, doesn't matter that much. But I like the idea that the level of love that they give the partner could only happen if they believe it to be true themselves. Is kind of the creepy, extra manipulative version, which is also just, it's just like, it gets to the wonderful punchability of Jack Quaid in this movie over and over again. Particularly in the scene where they're having sex and it's a cut almost like something out of The Substance. You know, it's like Dennis Quaid, like saying to smile and like showing his like, you know, teeth or something right in your face. He's like pounding on Sophie Thatcher and then rolls over and says goodnight immediately. And it's such a like heightened version of what if you wrote it as a comedy bit would just be a hacky, like, aren't men always like this? You know, they don't care at all about her. They just want to get what they want and then fall asleep. And I feel like everything he does feels that way. And the desire to have the fake narrative where she is in love with him and believes that it's real, it's just such a obvious gaslighting metaphor, but such a fun gaslighting metaphor to just watch play out. Like the ego trip it takes to want to keep that love going and going when you know that it's completely fucking made up. I don't know. I just got so much delight out of the way they fold in that premise, and I think it only works if the companion believes it to be true. So the companion is not just programmed to love you, but is being deceived and manipulated the whole time, right?
So do you think Jack Quaid actually is even playing anything up, or is he just biding his time for the real plan of this film, which we can talk about in a second? Like maybe I'm misinterpreting kind of what you're saying, but I don't believe he's actually trying to play into it. I think he's just like literally, well, I'm here, I might as well have a little fun before I go to sleep. Like I don't think he's playing into anything at all, right? Like I think he is literally, from the time he makes the decision to jailbreak his bot, he already has a plan in motion that he is like, I don't think he jailbroke her before the plan. I think the plan included jailbreaking from the start. And I don't feel like he actually is looking for, like, I think when he bought her, he was hoping that was an answer to his questions. But I think at some point he is just like perpetuating the lie long enough to enact this master plan of his to actually sort of do, like, I think he realized that like long ago that this was not the answer to any of his problems, and then he thought maybe millions of dollars was the answer to my problems.
Interesting. See, I know he hatched this plan. It felt to me like he was still trying to not just get her to do what he wanted, but to play into the lie, right? I can't put my finger on it. It's just the way he talks to her in the car. Even though it is also subtly dismissive of her, it also seems tender, like saying beep boop and all that stuff. You know, there's something there where I think he wants to feel like the big man on campus. And one thing that shows that very clearly is he does the classic Batman or Bond villain thing where he won't just fucking do the thing that will end the problem. He has to sit down with them and talk to them about it and have some level of closure, which gives Sophie Thatcher time to escape over and over again. Like he wants to say goodbye to her. He wants to be validated even in all the shitty things that he's done. He wants her to somehow still love him. And I know that isn't the same as him having feelings for her or wanting to feel the illusion anymore. But if it is truly a robot, why would you even want it to forgive you or to know that you have power over it or to know that you still can make it love you even after all the shitty things you've done? Like it seems like he still gets some kind of power trip over the belief that he is loved. And that's a fantasy that requires imagining that this is a real sentient person that he's talking to.
Yeah, I guess I couldn't tell whether him turning into a Bond villain was his state of being before or after everything went to shit. If it was sort of just like him like Breaking Bad over the course of this weekend or whatever it is, right? There was some aspect to it where it was like he was a shitty dude before, but he didn't seem like he was menacing. Like I don't think he ever tried to burn her arm before until she increased her intelligence and did bad stuff, right?
Yeah.
But anyways, let's talk about this master plan of his. So for whatever reason, a friend of his has started dating somebody who everybody assumes is some like Russian mafia guy.
Right.
Who happens to have a swanky pad in the middle of this area where nobody else can go. And they find out he has a safe with like however many millions of dollars in it. And then they hatch a plan. Well, what if we had a party? We all went out. We know this creepy dude is going to try to sleep with my companion robot. What if we set it up in a way where she gets more aggression, hide a knife in her thing, he tries to rape her, and then obviously she's going to defend herself and kill him. And then he'll be dead. And then we just call everybody and say, oh, my companion robot killed somebody because they did a bad thing. And then like the whole, like it is a wildly in-depth plan that
it depends on a lot of things you can't control too. Like, especially because another reveal is that Rupert friend, Sergey, the guy who owns the house, was not actually like a mobster. He was just kind of an asshole. And it's like being certain that because you gave him permission to have his way with your sex bot, that he would violently try to assault her when she says no. Like, that isn't a given at all, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's no guarantee that would happen.
They're making big assumptions. But also, by the way, the reveal of his dirty, the job that gets his hands dirty is he's a turf salesman.
Yeah. It's great.
It's pretty good. But anyways, this plan is overly elaborate. Of course, like all overly elaborate plans, there's certain things that you don't really know, like how the corporation that owns your robot does stuff. We can get to that in a second. But I do just like love how intricate it is. Like, that was their plan. Like, it's so wild. And like the way you see it from that character is like, why do I have a knife in my pocket? Why is this going to happen? I had seen from the trailer the knife in the neck thing. So it's like I knew exactly what was going to happen, but I still hadn't fully pieced together the elaborate plan that was unfolding, like on behalf of the other people. And I think too, going back to your question about like his bondness having to tell her, is I think at some point he's telling her not just to show he has command over her, but it's like the jig's up. You're about to be rebooted. You can stop freaking out now. There's no reason to be freaked out. We made you do that in a weird way, and now you're going to go be reset. Everything's going to be cool. I think he literally thinks this, because the companion robot is not a person, he expects her to just go like, oh, that all makes sense. I'll comply now. and it's really the fact that she believes she is alive that prevents her from just being like, oh, I guess you can reset me now and we can just go on with your plan, right? Like I don't think it's purely a Bond thing. I think he literally thinks he can just talk her down from her freaking out because she just murdered somebody.
Right. All I would say, though, and I guess there's a difference between the illusion of her being literally a human being and the classic philosophic argument of whether a robot, a sufficiently intelligent AI, is sentient and has a personality. He clearly is buying into at least the latter illusion. Otherwise, why would he give a fuck about any of that, right? Like, he would just like hold his finger to the sensor behind her ear, which is one of those I guess it's not a MacGuffin because it does get used on Lukas Gage, right, at some point. So we do see it happen. Like, they describe exactly how you reboot a person, and then she's never rebooted, which surprised me a little bit.
It's a factory restore, right? So it's like you have to hold it for a while before the logo pops up and everything resets. But still,
clearly he could have just told her go to sleep and hold it and be done with it. But he wants to calm down this person, he has some feeling where he thinks this is a sentient human being that I have some kind of connection to. I need to say farewell. And the only justification I can imagine for that is he wants to feel absolved because she still loves him and she understands. And that's an ego trip, but it's an ego trip that's based on sharing in the illusion, you know?
Yeah.
Maybe not the illusion you are not a robot, but certainly the illusion that this is a real being and not some hunk of metal that I'm paying for, you know?
Yeah. I do want to talk a little bit more about the world of these companion robots, because I love the fact that when you order them, they come pre-installed with a meet cute. You have to do like a face pairing. And then it literally plays out that encounter for the robot so it can have that fall in love moment. Such a brilliant
Amazing
concept. Like, it could have just been a program memory, but the fact that it literally imprints on the person and then lives that moment so that when it flashes into reality, it goes like, oh my God, that's like my most foundational memory of this couple. It's such a brilliant thing. And I also love the fact that it comes back later when we get to see the repairing of the story that they tell earlier. And he has that new thing. Yeah, this movie's just so fun with what
hilarious.
It does.
Yeah, I really love that too. Hey, I mean, learning from simulation is a big thing in AI right now. And that's basically what they're doing. They're simulating a meet cute and then using that to train whatever feelings they have.
Yeah.
It's also just such a funny takedown of the how did you meet story that couples tell, and the way that becomes a mythology that probably gets honed over time into something more perfect than it actually was. You know, I just find it really funny to think of all these pathetic guys that are hiring a robot to be their significant other. They still they still have to have that.
There could be pathetic women that are also hiring robots to be significant others.
It's true. It's true. We just don't see them in this context, but I'm sure they exist.
We only see two pathetic guys who are doing it.
Right. Exactly. It does also, because I mentioned that I kind of wanted to see the progression of Jack Quaid into being an asshole, but the movie kind of shows us it right away. But the meet cute gives us a prelude that shows the imaginary version that he wants to be in her dreams, at least, which is the like sweet, awkward, romantic comedy lead. And so I think that's a kind of clever touch too, is it shows us that, and then we see the actual guy instead.
Yeah. I do. It does make me go back to kind of like my question earlier that is separate from the movie. It didn't bother me while watching the movie, but when I think about a world of companions, is this film establishes that there's only X number of models, right? And when I say models, I mean literally models and also the model that the person is based off of. So,
right.
Like, this is a world where people are just walking out in the world at parties with their companion robot. Everybody knows it's a companion. And even if you somehow don't, like maybe let's pretend he's like a beta user, right? He's in the first 500 people to have one of these companion robots. The second you're at a party and somebody else tells a story about the oranges or like stepping on the tail of somebody dressed as a dinosaur, I feel like you would be like, huh, everybody keeps reusing this weird story as how they met. What the hell's going on here? And I feel like in order to really sell a companion world, you would need to like be able to design, at least have sliders, right? So that they all look slightly different.
Yeah.
Or have like this is a world where we have like super sophisticated AI. You could have a thing that literally generates unique variants, and every single companion bot that is created is unique, and there's no two that look alike, because you would think you would want the world to be not completely fake. Because if every party you go to, 50% of the occupants of the party are these fake bots, it's like no conversation you have is going to matter to you.
I know it's going to be like what the internet will feel like in a couple of years.
Yeah. About a couple of years, maybe a couple hours.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. And they do unfortunately establish that there are a few models, because I think it's Jabuki Young White, but maybe it's the other guy, like who come from the company, say, oh, that's why he looked familiar. He's one of the old models we had.
Yeah.
And it would be easy to have that be custom. I forget if they established that the meet cutes are pre-written and they just select them on the fly.
Yeah.
Because it would be easy for it to be an interview, right? Where like you talk to them and they craft the meet cute.
Yeah. But there's a lot that goes into that like thing. So I'm sure they've trained models on it. So if they interviewed you, that meet cute would not be as powerful as this trained one that they've created.
Sure. Yeah.
They analyzed every romantic comedy from all time.
It also, like, I know it hurts the world building slightly if you were to take it literally, but as the satire, it is extra funny because it's saying, yeah, everyone has the same fucking story. You know?
Yeah.
There's almost no variety in how people met.
Yeah.
Can we talk a little bit about the dynamics of how Sophie Thatcher, I need to remember her character name, Iris. Iris is the character. How Iris works, because this gets really fun when Iris takes the phone from Jack Quaid and is able to control herself. And there are all of these parameters that she's able to tune. To me, that's when the movie really kicks into high gear. For one, the brilliant voice modulating thing that is teed up early on and then is used. First of all, she tries to take his automatically driving car home, which has been teed up earlier too. She can't, because she can't log in. And then we remember the voice modulator and she finds a way to log in. It's just like brilliant, beautiful. I just love the visual of her kind of panning on this slider, trying to get her voice to be the exact right way to imitate Jack Quaid. I thought that was so fun.
Also, there's a funny thing of it too, because like he's yelling at her and she can't get the voice modulation right. If he just shut the fuck up, she probably couldn't get the voice right. But because he's yelling at her, she could compare and get, because I assume she's not programmed to think photographic memory or whatever the auditory version of photographic memory is.
I'm not sure. Though at this point, she's given herself 100% intelligence, right? So maybe she would have like extreme recall abilities or something like that.
I can't remember. Did they establish that 100% is just 100% allowed? Like,
yeah, they say the bounds 100% is like a PhD graduate from MIT or something like that. It isn't superhuman. It's just very smart.
Yeah, it's not like instant machine learned algorithm to replicate his voice. But
so it is kind of funny if she's jailbroken that those boundaries can't be tweaked even higher. It seems like that's one of the first things he would do.
Yeah.
I did just a great gag, by the way, is when she first opens it and sees that he set her at 40%. Like, wow. Wow, Patrick. Not Patrick, Josh.
Yeah.
Great stuff. And again, I know I keep acting like this is a brilliant satire when it's actually like the jokes are pretty obvious. I just had a ton of fun with it. But the idea of the idealized girlfriend or wife where it's the guy wants her to be docile and in love with him but doesn't want her to be too smart because that would threaten him. It's just, this movie has so much fun with all that stuff.
But Steven, maybe he just needed low intelligence so she didn't figure out his plan.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course. I'm sure when he first met her, he put her at 90%, and then right before the plan, he tuned it down. Other things I liked, speaking a different language, that I saw that coming. Obviously, it was teed up, so you know she's going to talk in a different language at some point in the movie. Doing it as a loophole to get out of the fact that she is not allowed to lie. I love that. That is one I didn't see coming until the moment she did it, and then I was like, genius screenwriting.
It is pretty great. I will say, to your point about jailbreaking, is if you can jailbreak them to not harm humans, can't you jailbreak them to not be able to lie? To not be able to lie?
You would think, yeah. That's, again, the jailbreaking seems very limited in what it can actually allow you to access.
Yeah.
Unless, but she didn't have access to the jailbroken stuff. That required the thumb drive, which she didn't have. Because that was like more hazy, kind of weird fake menu items, and they weren't rendered all the way where the aggression lives.
Yeah.
So maybe all of that lives there as well. And he's just a dumbass who didn't pre-program her to be allowed to lie. So in case she ran away and got caught, he wouldn't want it to happen.
Yeah, he wasn't expecting... Nobody... Like, when the company comes to recall the robot, they're not going to ask her... Is that what happened? You know, they're just going to plug her in and find out all the shit. So he doesn't have a reason to expect her to need to lie.
Yeah, and he was planning on factory rebooting her before they got there anyway.
Yeah. Well, yeah, he just thought that shooting her in the head or having her shoot herself in the head would destroy the computer. So
I know, which again is him getting progressively dumber as the movie gets on, because in the beginning he's planning on just resetting her the old-fashioned way. That's when he first describes the like fingerprint sensor behind the ear that you long press.
Yeah.
And he just wants to have the conversation with her first, you know. Later, that isn't enough. It has to be the Bond villain thing of making her shoot herself in the head, which is, it is just such a funny dumb guy thing to assume that this robot having like one bullet in the head will make all the memories go away. It's kind of,
it works for people.
It seems pretty obvious.
But yeah, I think the plan may have always been for her to shoot herself. Well, no, because they find the gun in the safe. But either way, it became part of his story, is that she was so distraught by the fact that she killed this other person that she took her own life.
Course,
like that was going to be part of his sort of lie to the people. But yeah, that moment of him being like, "Excuse me, the brains are in the stomach."
And then realizing they keep a copy of all the footage anyway, which of course they do. Like, they're, for one thing, and I know this doesn't exist in the real world, but she's connected via an app, and yes, it's probably Bluetooth, it's a local connection. It is reasonable to assume she's syncing to the cloud. So everything she did like is probably already available to someone, even if none of the movie happened after the initial murder.
Yeah, I mean, Can you imagine your meta companion bot? Just all the shit that it's thinking.
But yeah, just really funny movie. I enjoy the Lukas Gage flip too. I like how his relationship is different, right? Where his partner, when he admits that he is a robot, Lucas is like, I know already and I love you anyway. And you have a brief moment where it's like a really good relationship, but then you remember they are also terrible because they're trying to murder Sophie Thatcher, even though this guy's clearly capable of believing a robot is sentient and worthy of love. You know,
do you think he thinks he's actually sentient, or does he not care that all of his responses are programmed responses?
I don't know. I think it's hard to find a distinction at a certain point. He mourns the death of Lukas Gage. He doesn't go, oh, I could buy another one. No, sorry, it's the other way around.
I'm talking about the robot. Like, he understands that he's a robot, but he doesn't care, because even if he knows that he's programmed to like the way that guy likes him, that he's okay with the fact, like, he's still getting whatever the robot version of dopamine hits are from seeing him smile and all that kind of stuff. So he doesn't care. But does he care about Iris? He doesn't necessarily, right? So killing Iris kind of doesn't make sense because, or sorry, not doesn't make sense. Kind of doesn't necessarily bother him because he's like, oh, the two of us don't actually matter. Her fear is actually a programmed response to the fact that we're trying to kill her, not a... I just don't know how much he genuinely cares about...
Yeah, that is an interesting question. I mean, he grows to genuinely care, because in the end, that's why he tases himself to death rather than continue to attack her.
Well, I think I'm actually talking. So many other people got killed by then that he's like, oh, I've done terrible things to real people.
Yeah. But I'm actually talking about Eli, his boyfriend. He seems to genuinely love his robot boyfriend. Oh, yeah, right? He genuinely has feelings for him.
Yeah.
And knowing full well that it's a companion robot, but he still loves him, right? And in a sincere way. And yet he's also chasing after Sophie Thatcher, trying to murder her, which is how he gets killed. So it's like he believes true love can exist between a human and a robot, but he has no problem murdering another robot.
Yeah, because he doesn't love that one.
Yeah.
Also, Steven, it's $4 million.
Mm-hmm.
Also, how much do you think these robots cost?
It's a good question. I have no idea.
Yeah, or are they just like leases?
Well, they can be leases. Like, I think Jack Quaid said that he leased Iris.
So yeah, then you only have to pay for it long enough to do your evil scheme.
To do that. I was going to say you only have to pay for it for like 3.5 minutes.
I'm not sure if they let you test drive the robot at the offices. I know they get delivered by mail. That's right. Good times.
Good times.
I think we covered most of everything.
Yeah.
Cool.
Fun movie.
All right. Go to sleep, Steven.
I had no noise I could make to prove that I went to sleep, so only Chris will know that I actually did it.
And this is just sleep talking. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time. Bye.
Ooh.